Welcome back, Dave.
Yeah, we haven't talked in weeks. Unbelievable.
And let's just get this out of the way because, you've been really focused on your job since you've been back. But I know someone's going to ask me about it. Give us like a minute of what was your favorite thing that you all did in Hawaii.
We just hung out at the beach. I mean, for the most part, went to nice restaurants and stuff. But I do have a wrestling story.
Who did you run into in Hawaii?
I didn't run into any famous wrestlers like the last trip.
We actually had a side bet in the Discord, and my guess was Don Morocco, but
I did not run into any famous wrestlers like the other trips I did. But one of which was not a surprise because they lived there, and the other one was a total surprise. It was a wrestler who was there in the same place I was. So, but this time, I don't have any stories like that. I was at a restaurant, and the waiter is just like, oh my God, and I go like, I know you. And then he just starts talking. This was right after Sabu died, and he goes, man, bro, he knew who I was, broke my heart about Sabu. I'd say the guy was 30, and he just goes like, I have been, he said he got married a week ago. And this is a crazy one. He's been with his wife, and this is before the wedding and after. And he goes, our favorite thing to do is watch ECW Hardcore TV.
Oh my gosh!
So he's like goes on the internet and finds like those old ECW Hardcore shows from the 90s, and like started talking to me about that. And he did know. It's funny because the person I was with was. They start talking about Paul Heyman. I'm just like listening, and to him, Paul Heyman is this guy who, did ECW, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to her, it's like Paul Heyman is the guy with Roman Reigns, and she doesn't know anything else, right? And it was just funny that like, but they both are just like, Paul Heyman's a genius, blah blah blah, but it's like from completely different worlds with neither. He knew about the Roman Reigns. He's still a wrestling fan. This would have been on Wednesday morning because of the Samoa Joe and Moxley cage match because he knew the lineup. He knew like Joe and and he knew Ospreay and Adam Page were doing the tag match and everything like that. So he completely still follows it and all that. But his favorite was ECW. But I think that's like my only pro wrestling related story or even conversation the whole week. But I'm learning more and more places to go in Maui, so it's getting more and more comfortable going there, like the right beach to go to, the right time to go, the cool restaurants and things. So that's kind of going to be like I'm sure I'm going to go back in November for a birthday, but that's kind of becoming our place now, our home away from home thing. And enough to where I have all these books about real estate in Kie. So,
I've asked you about that before. If you ever plan on maybe not even living there, but staying there for, more than just a vacation.
Well, I can't work from there to do anything, significant. This week was so hard doing, trying to catch up from the week before because I knew some stuff that happened during that week, but really didn't pay much attention. I saw like, the only stuff I saw, I think I watched some, some stuff that people sent me on the computer, like maybe an Arena Mexico main event or maybe one of the a couple of Super Junior matches and stuff. But really, I only watched the WWE pay-per-view and the Wednesday Dynamite because of, it was such a big show. And that was largely the wrestling that I watched. And news-wise, I didn't really keep up. So I came back and it's just like so much going on that, that I had to catch up on. So this week I didn't do anything, but I think I spent a couple of days catching up and then and writing, and just going through. And I, watched all the TVs this week, but I still watch very little Super Juniors. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I saw. Did you see Dark Side on the Sheik?
I did, and I also saw the one on Daphne.
I saw a little bit of the one on Daphne. I'm not done with that one, and I would say probably 80% of the one on the Sheik. I didn't see the whole thing, which I liked the Sheik one. It was
just surreal to see Sabu on that show,
wasn't it? Though I know, and and it was interesting. The whole Sabu thing was really interesting too because it's such an interesting topic because of like he's a guy who's like as a star, like he was an independent star and everything for a couple of years, but was pretty big. And then he was just kind of, a guy who, if you grew up in a certain period and you liked ECW, he was a giant star. And if you didn't, you kind of remember him because he did some stuff with WWE for a little bit until he got fired. And he did some stuff with WCW that, of course, he probably hated. So it's not like, it's funny because like I compare him to like Randy Orton. Like Randy Orton's like 20 times bigger of a star than Sabu ever was, but Sabu is like so influential in wrestling. And like to me, Randy Orton is a guy who's a giant star who will eventually go into the Hall of Fame, even though the numbers don't indicate that he will. I'm sure he's going to be like Sting, and in 20 years, the people who grew up with Randy Orton are going to go, "Why he's not in the Hall of Fame? He's 14 world champions. He was always on my TV and all those main events." Blah blah blah. The same with the Sting thing, and before big crowds, which Sting didn't have as much of, but like Sabu is like he's not the star that Randy Orton was. Did not have the longevity at the top that Randy Orton had, but he was way more influential. Like you take Randy Orton out, and it's one of those things. He's a guy who was there and a big star and a great natural professional wrestling worker who had many good matches. I would guess just because Sabu was insane and did crazy stuff that the best Sabu match would probably trump the best Randy Orton match. But almost every wrestler would tell you, "Oh, the Randy Orton's a better wrestler than Sabu," and and in his way, and as technically what professional wrestling is, as what you're taught, he's far better. But it's just interesting because of like I kind of look at that dichotomy, with the Hall of Fame. And it's like you can make a real case. And I mean, Sabu was on the ballot, never got a lot of support. And then, when he passed away, it's kind of like, he passed away, and it's kind of like, oh my God, like 5 minutes into that match, the 4-way on the WWE Backlash show, they're doing "We Want Tables, We Want Tables," and it's kind of like that's all. It's like I don't know that we have this table mentality without Sabu. I mean, it was like,
yeah, but is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, that's which is another question. Yeah,